Queen Terra of the Zolonian Empire stood frozen on her throne as the grand doors of her crystalline palace burst open. The generals who had brought the news of the massacre at the Caridian Nebula 3 days prior now stepped aside, their scaled features contorted in disbelief. Through the archway strode Princess Keela, her chitinous armor cracked and stained with battle residue, but very much alive. Behind her walked something impossibly small and vulnerable, bipedal and soft-skinned, wearing the remnants of what appeared to be primitive combat gear. "My daughter," Terra breathed, descending the steps of her throne with all 4 arms extended. "The report said your entire fleet was destroyed. How did you—" "Mother," Kayla interrupted, her voice carrying the traditional note of respectful challenge that marked Zolonian royal addresses. "I present to you James Mitchell, warrior of Earth. He saved my life when our ships collided during the battle. I owe him a life debt." The human, James, stood quietly beside the princess, his brown eyes meeting the queen's violet gaze without flinching. His lack of exoskeleton made Terra's royal guards tense, weapons twitching in their grips. "Explain," Terra commanded, resuming her place on the throne. Princess Kayla stepped forward, her natural battle scars glinting under the palace lights. "The Caridian swarm overwhelmed our position. My command ship took critical damage and was evacuating. During the chaos, a human vessel, their crude but surprisingly nimble craft, collided with mine." She paused, gesturing to James. "Instead of destroying me, this human pulled me from the wreckage of my escape pod. He could have left me to die in space. Instead, he brought me aboard his ship and defended both our vessels against the swarm while we enacted emergency repairs." "A human defended a Zolonian royal?" General Vex, the Queen's chief military advisor, hissed in disbelief. "These beings barely possess interstellar capability. Their weapons are—" "Effective," James interrupted, his voice carrying a quiet confidence that silenced the room. "My ship, the Defiance, may not match your technology, but we learned to make every shot count when we encountered the swarm 3 months ago near Jupiter." Queen Terra leaned forward, intrigued despite herself. "You have encountered the Caridian swarm before?" James nodded. "They hit our outer system colonies. We lost 12 million people before we figured out their weaknesses. They don't adapt well to unpredictable tactics. Your formation fighting, it's precise but predictable." "Preposterous," General Vex snarled. "Our tactical doctrine has conquered 17 star systems. And yet here we are," James replied calmly. "Survivors of a battle your doctrine couldn't win." Keela touched her mother's throne with one of her lower arms, a gesture of requesting permission to speak. "He speaks truth, Mother. When I was aboard his ship, I observed their combat records. The humans fight differently. They use gravity wells for weapon acceleration. They modify asteroid trajectories for mass impact strikes. They are this clever and still use projectile weapons?" Vex scoffed. James smiled, a gesture lost on the assembled Zolonians. "Energy weapons are efficient against shields, but when those shields are down, a depleted uranium round traveling at significant fractions of light speed doesn't care about armor ratings." Queen Terra studied the human more carefully. His species seemed fragile, their lifespan laughably short compared to Zolonian centuries, their technology primitive by galactic standards. Yet her daughter, her heir, stood beside this being as an equal. "You speak of a life debt," Terra said finally. "In Zolonian culture, such debts are sacred and must be repaid threefold. What do you ask of us, human?" James straightened, meeting her gaze once more. "Nothing, Your Majesty. I didn't save the princess to create an obligation. Where I come from, we call it doing the right thing." The throne room fell silent. In Zolonian society, where every action carried calculated value and purpose, the concept of selflessness was almost incomprehensible. Princess Kayla stepped closer to her mother. "This is what I discovered about humans during our journey home. They fight not just for conquest or resources, but for principles, for strangers, for rivals who might become allies." "The Caridian swarm will return," General Vex warned. "Our defeat was tactical, not strategic. They'll regroup and strike again." "Then perhaps," Queen Terra mused, her violet eyes narrowing thoughtfully. We should consider new allies, new tactics. She focused on James again. Tell me, human warrior, how would your species defend against a foe that can darken 100 stars? James ran a hand through his hair, a nervous gesture that somehow seemed endearingly primitive to the watching Zilonians. We'd probably build something dangerous and stupid, then charge at them while playing ancient war songs on maximum volume. Despite herself, Queen Tara felt something like amusement stir in her chest. And this works? Often enough, James shrugged. Though I imagine combining human creativity with Zilonian precision might work better. Over the following hours, as James and Kayla recounted their shared battle against the swarm, Queen Tara recognized something profound occurring in her throne room. Her daughter, hardened warrior and heir to an empire, had returned changed by her encounter with this human. The life debt was real, yes, but something more connected them. Mutual respect born of shared survival. By the time the binary stars set beyond the palace's crystalline spires, Queen Tara had made her decision. The Zilonian Empire would extend its first offer of true alliance to a species that had barely achieved faster-than-light travel. Not because of their technology, but because of their character, exemplified by a single human who had pulled an Isyo enemy from death's grasp without hesitation. As James was led to guest quarters befitting his unexpected status as the first human ambassador to Zilonia, Kayla lingered beside her mother's throne. "You believe I acted rashly," the princess stated, not asking. "I believe," Queen Tara replied, "that you acted with wisdom that surpasses standard royal doctrine. Perhaps it takes an outsider's perspective to reveal our blind spots. The humans are not what our intelligence report suggested." "No," the Queen agreed. "They are far more dangerous. But perhaps that's exactly what we need to face what's coming." In the months that followed, the unlikely alliance between the Zilonian Empire and Earth's United Defense Force would revolutionize galactic warfare. Human ingenuity merged with Zilonian discipline created tactics the Caridian swarm could not predict or counter. Princess Kayla and James Mitchell became icons of interspecies cooperation, their story inspiring unity among former rivals. The galaxy would later mark this day as the turning point in the swarm wars, not when humanity helped save the Zilonians, but when both species chose to see past ancient prejudices to recognize the warrior spirit that transcends the boundaries of flesh, chitin, or scales. Queen Tara often reflected on how close they had come to dismissing humanity as insignificant. Sometimes she knew the smallest beings cast the longest shadows, and sometimes the ones you least expect to survive return bearing the salvation you never knew you needed. The war would continue for years, but that day in the Crystal Palace marked humanity's true entry onto the galactic stage, not as conquerors or supplicants, but as equals who had proven their worth in the most fundamental way possible, by choosing to help when they could have simply watched their potential rivals fall. And Princess Kayla, for her part, never regretted the collision that had brought her face to face with her species' future. A future where the measure of strength wasn't just in ships or shields, but in the courage to extend a hand to someone who should have been your enemy. The debt was paid, but the alliance endured, and the galaxy would never quite be the same again.